Okay, this video is called Why Multiculturalism is an Evil Lie. And it is a trick used by the left to try to say that Western civilization is no good and it's evil and it should be destroyed and replaced by socialism, which really means communism. Okay, that's what this is all about. So I'm just going to show you real history. You can decide for yourself what you think. The Aztecs would make piles of skulls from sacrificial victims, and these included men, women, and children. They'd make walls of skulls. Here's an excavation. This is in a BBC article digging out all these skulls. They're finding hundreds and hundreds of skulls, okay? They had found 676 skulls piled up in a Mexican City Aztec temple, okay? That's how insane Aztec is. Aztec would sacrifice people, then they would eat them. Okay, here they are eating people, all right? That's Aztec civilization, okay? And it wasn't just the Aztec, it was most of these tropical countries. Okay, here's a woman in Brazil walking around with a human foot and a human hand there, okay? And that was in 1641, okay? When the Europeans came to the New World, this is what they found all over the place. Here it is, cannibalism in the Fiji Islands. Okay, now other people say, well, you know, the Westerners were terrible to the American Indians, and they were not as nice to them as they should be. That is true, okay? But I also want to make a point. The American Indians were living in teepees. They really had not populated the place too much. The people who came were settlers. They weren't immigrants. They didn't merge with the population. They didn't. The country was largely unoccupied, okay? But anyways, here's the level of their civilization. This is in 1890, living in a teepee. Okay, and here's a little bit nicer painting of it. Okay, just to give you a perspective for where they were at as of 1890. Okay, and then the other thing about slavery. Oh, you know, American slavery, the worst thing in the world. Yeah, slavery is very bad. Slavery should not be allowed to happen. But slavery is something that has been present ever since the beginning of recorded history, and it's still present in most areas of the world. If an area is non-Christian, it probably has slavery. You know, the demos, you know, are basically atheistic USA Communism Party. They're heavily involved with that business of traffic, you know, with you-know-what minors. Okay, modern slavery worldwide. It's still big in India. Look at that. It's big in China. China still harvests your kidneys on you. It's big in Pakistan. It's big in Muslim countries. It's big in communist countries. Communism means atheism, okay? It's big in North Korea. It's big in Nigeria. So this is an important point. Slavery is still very big in Africa, okay? It's not a white people thing. It's a non-Christian thing. It's big in Nigeria. It's big in Congo. It's big in Indonesia. It's big in Russia, okay? Slavery is still a worldwide common thing in non-Christian countries. And that's my point. Christianity gets rid of slavery. Okay, and this has been well known. These are paintings from the 1800s, you know, white people being sold as slaves, especially to Muslim countries, okay? Okay, and I also wanted to make the point, cannibalism was very common also in Africa. So this is a painting in 1904. These hostile tribes, they would capture somebody from the other tribe, and then they would cook them, and they would have them for dinner, okay? And those are some remnants, okay? This is going on in 1904, okay? And look at the house they're living in, the Maasai. Yeah, they get a lot of exercise walking with the cattle, but still, their house is made out of sticks and cow dung, okay? In the 21st century. So, you know, is that better than, you know? Okay, and here is an example, and again, this is in Africa with, you know, fighting hostile tribes. When they catch a guy, this is what they do to him, and then afterwards he's cooked for dinner and eaten. Okay, so I'm just telling you, you know, you'll hear people complain about USA. You don't see anybody wanting to move back to that. Okay, cannibalism in China in the 1400s from Marco Polo Travels wrote all about it happening there. And then also there was the intentional, you know, getting rid of their own citizens. Mao, you know, killed over 30 million of his people. Okay, Stalin did the same thing. They did it with their Gulag Archipelago prisons. They also did it with famines. Here's a quote by Victor Davis Hanson, the great historian. He says, Stalin and Mao killed over 80 million, and they did not make an omelet despite breaking a lot of eggs, because that's the thing the communists would say. They go, oh, well, you got to, you know, break a few eggs if you want to make an omelet. No, they didn't make any omelet. All they made was giant slave labor camps and destroyed farming, caused starvation. And they would cause starvation on purpose to get rid of, you know, entire population areas, just like some other tyrannical regimes will burn down, cities just to take that land for other purposes. Okay, maybe that includes Hawaii. Okay, here is China, 1945, 1976. Mao killed over 30 million people, some by starvation or by other things. They harvest people's kidneys over there. Confucius was a great man, but he was just, a bureaucrat. He had some good quotes. But what I'm trying to say is atheistic philosophies like Confucius, that cannot stand up to atheism. That cannot stand up to communism. It gets its butt kicked, okay? So, Confucius, a couple good quotes, that's nice, okay? But it's weak. The only thing that can stand up to Christianity, the only thing that can stand up to communism is Christianity. That's it. That's why communism wants to get rid of Christianity. Okay, here is a 1919 painting. The Russian clergy, after the Soviets took over, they were basically forced into slavery. There's an armed guard. And this is the same thing with communism everywhere. Okay, and here, let's take a look at Pakistan. Pakistan, they beat the crap out of the Christians. They kill them. They burn their churches down. They burn their Bibles. Okay, that's how the Pakistanis behave in Pakistan. In 2025, that article. Okay, and then here's how they behave when they go to England. They make gangs to rape young women. Okay, that's well known, Pakistani rape gangs in England. Okay, now here's a little bit more about Russia. He starved to death 3.9 million Ukrainians back in 1932. It was called Holodomor, meaning intentional starvation to kill people. Stalin's, one of the most evil people that ever lived. All right, but that's atheism. Okay, that is the religion of communism. It is atheism. Atheism has been coming to the USA in the form of the Democrat Party, which is the American Communist Party. And look what they do to the schools. They bring drag queens into the schools. They want this, alphabet stuff, LGBTQ, because it doesn't generate population, because they want to get rid of the Christian family. And this is the kind of stuff they bring. This is what they want in your schools, okay? This is insane. Children should not be exposed to this type. They should not be sexualized at a young age. This is evil. And this idea of a gender-affirming surgery, it is evil. It is the castration of children. No child is ready to make a tremendously important decision to castrate themselves at such a young age. And it's so evil, it's not even funny. Okay, now the other thing the left wants in the schools is something called medical assistance in dying. And they are encouraging children to commit suicide. They want to legalize this. And they even wanted to come up with a term called mature minors to help get the parents out of the picture so they could just get the kid to commit suicide without parental parents being involved in it. It's insane. Okay? That's insane. Treating attention deficit with amphetamines is also insane. This is all the evil stuff, okay? This last guy, you all know who this guy is. For the Democrats, they had Easter turned into Transgender Day. Okay, this is all to decrease the population size, to get rid of the Christians so they can bring back slavery. And, this gender-affirming surgery is to castrate low IQ Christians. That's the purpose of it. It's insane. Okay, this craziness is coming to England, and in some towns, they forbid using the words husband and wife. They think the word husband and wife is sexist, so they only want it to be spouse or partner. Okay, so you can see how evil this is. They want to get rid of gender, which means they want the population to commit suicide. The reason why they're male-female gender roles is so populations can survive, okay? We need that, okay? It's not like by accident there's such a thing as man and woman. Women are good at having babies and taking care of them, okay? Men are good at working all day, all right? And doing physical manual labor. Okay, they don't have a period. A woman's got the strength of a 6th grade boy, okay, or a 5th grade boy. She can't do the physical things a man can do. It's just a fact, all right? And she's going to be tired 1 month out of the week from her menstrual period, okay? All right, England turns on her own. England is becoming communist. The EU is just a communist front to destroy Europe, to get rid of all the white Christian men there. It is sentencing people for, making a post on social media. Okay, you can't even post an opinion on social media. They bring in military-age men at night, and they house them and give them free food, free housing. And meanwhile, the regular population is going homeless, being unemployed, and being abused. Okay, they're also imprisoning farmers in UK. It looks to me like they're trying to cause a starvation event. okay, here's Buddha, and Buddha, he was a great man, but he's not a god, okay? He's just another philosophy, and he's got some, good quotes and ideas, but, he can't prevent the caste system, okay? Ashok, the brutal tyrant who took over India, he wanted everybody to convert to Buddhism, said he converted to Buddhism because he wanted them to just look at the wall, sit there and say Om, and shut up and not bother him, okay? It's a way to pacify people. This cannot stand up to communism. This cannot stand up to the caste system of India. They still have caste system in India, okay? People are called untouchables. It's a lot of the population. It's one out of every 6 Indians, okay? And they're like, what? Their destiny from when they're born is to, clean the latrine, okay? You want to talk about racist? That's a million times more racist than the United States. Are you kidding me? You're born to be a toilet cleaner? I mean, what is that? And other crazy stuff in India, when the guy dies, the husband dies, the wife is thrown into the funeral pyre, burn the widows, craziness like that. So don't get me wrong, the English colonists were a bunch of assholes, but at least they taught them Christianity. It wasn't they didn't do it voluntarily. It was because of the Christian missionaries. Because like Hinduism, I've heard from Indians. This is what Indian writers have told me in their books, that Hinduism is really atheism. They've got these gods which, at best are a little bit reminiscent of, sort of like fairy tales and stuff. And, here's Ganesh. He's got 4 arms or something, and he's got feet like a person, but he's an elephant. And, this might symbolize something philosophically meaningful to people, but this is not God, okay? This is not a religion. This is not something that will inspire people to stand up to tyranny or slavery. No way. You still have slavery and a caste system in India. Okay? You got a lot of high IQ people. I'm going to talk more about Indians in just a moment. Here's Open Bible by Vincent van Gogh, and the Bible is what brings freedom. Okay? And that's actually well known. Here is Vishal Mangalwadi. He's an Indian guy. And he wrote this great book called The Book That Made Your World, all about how the Bible is what, made the soul and what's good of Western civilization. He said the Bible is the only force known to history that has freed entire nations from corruption while simultaneously giving them political freedom. He says the Bible, this is Vishal Mangalwadi writing this Indian guy, the Bible created the modern world of science and learning because it gave us the Creator's vision of what reality is all about. Before that, in India, they would have something called Maya that you just can't know, so there wasn't any motivation really to do much scientific work. And also, in a lot of these countries, like in China, for example, property was not secure. So if an inventor invents something, the corrupt government would just steal it away from them. So there was no incentive to invent anything. He says, this is what made the modern West a reading and thinking civilization, that idea of God as the creator, so he created us in his image, so we can be creators too, and the universe is rational. Vishal Mangalwadi continues, postmodern people see little point in reading books that do not contribute directly to their career or pleasure. This is a logical outcome of atheism, which is now realized that the human mind cannot possibly know what is true and right. Unless you have that moral foundation of man is created in the God and therefore part divine, and therefore we should not abuse him. He's entitled to some rights because he's created in the image of God. Life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, free speech, the right to property, for example. Okay? Now and this is another point, there's a lot of real high IQ people in every country that are capable of doing great things, but they need to have a philosophy and a legal political system that allows them to. So here's Dinesh D'Souza. This guy's a genius. He's written a bunch of great books and made a bunch of great films. And he answers atheist arguments about wars, okay? And he does say, yes, the Spanish Inquisition at worst killed about 5,000 or even 10,000 people over, about 500 or more years, all right? But compared to atheism, there's no comparison. And the Spanish Inquisition was really a tool of the king, okay? It was much more of that than it was a religious thing. Stalin, Mao, they killed over 100 million people, okay? And it's actually a lot more than that if you really look at it more carefully, not to mention all the other communist dictators around the world like Pol Pot, Enver Hoxha, and all the stuff that happened in Eastern Europe. Atheistic regimes killed 10,000 times more people in a couple of decades than the Spanish Inquisition killed in, 500 years, okay? So I'm letting you know, yeah, the Spanish Inquisition was wrong, but it was a tool of the Spanish king, all right? And Christianity is not perfect, but it makes things a lot better. And the other thing is that these non-Christian cultures, they don't achieve hardly anything. Like in Ireland when they had the Druids, okay, they were backwards, okay, they didn't achieve almost anything. Now, I'm also going to make a comment about some of these other religions, like Shinto in Japan. Shinto is a form of ancestor worship, plus also pantheism, that there's sort of like a spirit or a god or something in everything. But that's basically like atheism. And some of the Japanese said the reason they were hesitant to convert to Christianity is because they wanted to worship their ancestors. And I think it's a good thing they respect their ancestors. The Japanese, out of all the populations of the world, are one of the best behaved people. Okay, the Japanese, they said that children can walk around in the big cities at night, take the bus alone at night, and they don't have any problems. The crime's next to nothing. Partly that's because it's a mono-ethnic society. But, Japan people, they're very well behaved. Look at how all these guys are dressed, all wearing suits, Almost nobody wears suits anymore in the United States, and that's another sign of cultural decadence, okay? And pantheism is really like atheism. If everything is God, has God in it, a soul, then nothing is God, okay? Now, they don't create almost anything in art or literature, etc. Okay, they're good at manga and video games. Okay, so here is creation of Adam by Michelangelo. Man is created in the image of God. Therefore, he too can be a creator. Therefore, he is part divine, entitled to rights. This is what Christianity and Western civilization does. And Western civilization is basically like almost essentially saying the same thing as Christian civilization. Not exactly, but pretty close. Okay, here's Genesis. Adam and Eve created in the image of God, living and getting along, eating plant foods, all right? Western Civ created the best art, the 10 Commandments, be good, be nice, don't lie, don't steal. It tells you to be good. You're not supposed to do these bad things. Christian Sermon on the Mount by Karl Bloch. The biggest part of that is that what you do to the least of my brethren, you do unto me. Be nice to all the poor, weak people, because most people are poor and weak and kind of helpless. And so you respect them, okay? And Christianity says you do that. You be nice to everybody, and then it kind of ripples outward. It celebrates life. Leftism and communism, it celebrates abortion, okay? It wants to get rid of the family. It wants LGBTQ and polygamy to be used as an excuse to get rid of the family, to get rid of traditional marriage and families. It wants slavery. It doesn't even want parents to own their kids. Look at MAID. It wants children to commit suicide without parents being involved in the consent, really. Same thing with the gender-affirming nonsense. This idea of mature minors is ridiculous. Adoration of the child. They're also trying to legalize, P, and then comes the word dough. That's what they want to legalize, okay? It's sick. All right, so anyways, Christianity celebrates life. Go, be fruitful and multiply. St. Elizabeth's at her charity. It produced all these great charities. The old churches, when they were actually run by real people and heterosexual men, were a great thing. The Catholic Church has been infiltrated by homosexuals and communists, and it's being destroyed, the organized church. The religion is still great, but the organized church is in trouble. The current pope is a phony antichrist. Okay, and this is other degradation of all the institutions by atheistic leftism, communism. Statues of turds in a museum other than beautiful statues. Like this is the Pietà by Michelangelo. Christianity makes all the most beautiful statues. Christianity makes the greatest, most beautiful architecture. So yes, I am clearly saying it that other civilizations are inferior to Christianity. They're not even remotely in comparison to Christianity. They stink in comparison to Christianity. Look at a Christian church, the architecture. It's magnificent. The 3 doors with the Last Judgment on the wall, the other door to the aisle, this is the door to the nave, the rose window, the towers, the little statues of the Old Testament kings. The whole thing is beautiful. Look at the modern building, as Tom Wolfe, the American author, had said. It looks like an animal cage with a statue of a turd in front. It's crap. It's degrading. Okay, here's just a painting of Salisbury Cathedral in England. It's rather beautiful, and the French cathedrals are even better. Okay, and then here's this more BS modern art. Picasso was a scumbag member of the Commie Party. He's a piece of crap. He's an evil piece of crap. You study him, you'll see. Here's typical Edmund Leighton painting, It's beautiful. Okay, he's a follower of the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood of Artists. They're magnificent. Okay, here's Raphael's School of Athens, the high Renaissance, sort of like the apex of the Renaissance, that and Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel paintings. And this, of course, is Plato and Aristotle in the School of Athens. There's Michelangelo, there's Diogenes, there's Socrates, there's Raphael. Okay, so it's sort of Roman architecture with primarily Greek philosophers and scholars. It's magnificent. Western Christian painters, they're the best. Look at this. Albert Bierstadt, Sierra Nevada Mountains, 1868. It's magnificent. It's beyond great. It's magnificent. And there's tons more where this came from. Frederick Edwin Church, Thomas Cole, it goes on and on. Jasper Crosby. Christianity's produced the best literature. 19 out of the top 20 books, they're all Christian novels, okay, or plays. And, the exception would be Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged is also magnificent. Okay, that's the only book by a non-Christian writer that makes the top 20 all-time best novels. Okay, so that's Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. And the other best ones are all Christian too. Fyodor Dostoevsky, Brothers Karamazov, Les Miserables, Victor Hugo, Quo Vadis by Henry Sienkiewicz, George Orwell's 1984, and his Animal Farm, Brave New World, Aldous Huxley, Scarlet Letter, Nathaniel Hawthorne. Okay, it goes on and on. Lewis Walls, Ben-Hur. It goes on and on. They're all great. Don Quixote, Miguel Cervantes, Tristram Shandy. Okay. Anyways, How the West Was Won by Rodney Stark. Modern scientific method, it comes from Christianity. Here's Charlemagne being crowned around 800 AD, and he brought in Alcuin to modernize the school system. Copernicus figuring out the planetary orbits. Kepler figuring out, there were no elliptical cycles. They're great genius, devoted his whole life to Christianity. Newton, the smartest guy who ever lived, spent more time reading and writing about the Bible than doing science. Michael Faraday. It goes on and on. It's nonstop. I'm just going to show you a couple of them. So what I'm trying to say is, while these other cultures are practicing cannibalism, living in teepees and houses made out of cow dung, Western civilization invented all the major inventions of the modern world, including the computer, okay? It stopped slavery, okay? It gave people freedom, free speech. It gave them the Constitution. Henry Ford making his car. Nikola Tesla and Thomas Edison, great inventors, okay? Alexander Graham Bell inventing the telephone. This goes on and on. I'm just going to show you a few of them. Marconi inventing the radio, even though Nikola Tesla really did a lot of it. Okay, and basically atheistic Darwinism says that man is nothing more than a monkey that talks, that he has no intrinsic rights. Whoever's got the might and the power, which means the most money, should be allowed to do whatever they want. Okay? That's what atheistic Darwinism, leftism, and communism is all about. It has no moral high ground. Its goal is to put most people into slavery. Okay? Where real freedom comes from is from this tradition, like King Arthur and the Round Table, that the knights were equal and respected. Like men like Patrick Henry, who said, "Give me liberty or give me death." For 1776, like the Declaration of Independence written by Thomas Jefferson. Like the signing of the Declaration of Independence. And there's a bunch of white Christian men, okay? That's where the United States comes from. And anybody who wants to study it, look up, Charlie Kirk, look up David Barton. That's the truth about American history. They used to have church and prayer sessions in the same buildings in which they would legislate, okay? And then here's the Constitution being signed, okay? That man should have freedom, the right to free speech, to property, and all that stuff that goes with it, okay? So that's the reality. Multiculturalism is BS. It's just a gaslighting lie to destroy Western civilization. Western civilization is the best civilization that has ever existed. It has brought freedom. It has put the three letter C's together: Christianity, laissez-faire capitalism, and a constitution. And that's what's required for freedom. People don't have to be Christian, but they have to have Christian ethics, Give the other person the benefit of the doubt, allow others to own property, to have free speech. That what you do to the least of my brethren, you do unto me. Value the individual. As Ayn Rand had said, if minority rights are granted, all other rights follow. And you'll see one after another, people come from other countries, and then they become Christians, and their achievements as a culture, as a people, dramatically improve. So anyways, I just hope people realize that Western civilization is worth preserving and protecting and saving, and hopefully it'll be saved.